Welcome, everybody, to episode 107 of the Talking Friars podcast with a special guest today, Adam Rosales, the former San Diego Padre. I'm Ben Fadden, your host. Adam, thanks so much for joining.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah, no problem. So for the people who might be, hopping into Padres fandom or, aren't diehards like I am, Adam played for the Padres in 2016. He was one of my favorite players, hustled all the time, and that definitely gained my respect and a lot of Padre diehard fans, respect. But before we get to that, I did want to ask, just let everyone know what you're doing now with the Oakland A's, and what made you kind of want to get into that role.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved player development. I always feel like I could help young players, and I just love working with them. They're hungry. I mean, obviously, the professionals, they want to get to the major leagues, and I feel like I can help them get there. So I interviewed with a couple teams, but the Oakland A's had a spot for me, and they asked me to be the manager. So I'm the manager right now here in the ACL. So I'm here all year round in Mesa. So I get to be home with my wife and kids every night. So it's nice.
I bet, yeah. What would I say for that job? I think not a lot of people obviously are, paying attention to that level of the minor leagues, but are those players, so those players that you're dealing with, those are guys usually that are coming like right out of the draft?
Yeah, guys right out of the draft, halfway through the season. So we pick up those guys. That's like the second wave of players that we get. But we start off with the free agent signs from like Dominican Republic or Venezuela, all these free agents, and guys that kind of repeat the league again, guys that still need some development before they go to A ball.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a variety and mix of different players.
Now, do you have big league managing aspirations sometime down the road?
That's a big role, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously you guys just got my favorite manager of all time. I mean, I've been blessed with a lot of great managers, but Bob Melvin's coming to San Diego, and he is outstanding. You guys will love him. But yeah, I do aspire to coach in the major leagues sometime, to be at that level. And because I know, like, when you're at the major league level, winning is everything, right? You have to win, right? In the minor league level, it's more a lot of player development and skill acquisition. So yeah, I love doing that. I feel like I can contribute and help give back in that sense. But eventually, yeah, I want to be at that level where winning means everything. At the major league level, I think that's fun. It's exciting for sure.
What can you tell us more about Bob Melvin and your relationship that you had with him as a player?
Just his servant leadership, his communication. I was always the player that was on the fence of going to AAA to major leagues my whole entire career. And I played on and off for 11 years in the major leagues. And I was always that guy on the fence. But Bob Melvin always made me feel like I was the number 3 hole hitter, right? Like he made me feel like I was a big part of the team. And he would just come up to me during batting practice to let me know, hey, we're facing CC Sabathia tomorrow. You're going to face him and you're going to be playing shortstop. So be ready. So he'd always prep me, and just his communication and how much he cared about me as a person really went a long way for me.
Now you talk about that preparation and kind of warning you what the plan is for you specifically, and then how he did that obviously with other players. Do you think that could help, let's say someone like an Eric Hosmer or some other struggling guy, or I don't want to put it that way, but players that just haven't, I guess, lived up to expectations, if you will. Do you think that might help, Melvin being really that player's manager?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to the respect, and taking that pressure off of players and letting them know, like, you know how to do this. Now do it. I got your back. It definitely takes a lot of pressure off players. He's going to be great for guys like Hosmer, I feel like. And just like I said before, it's going to be nothing but respect on both ends. Because I know both of those guys and the way they are.
Right. what do you think of Fernando and how, he's totally just took the league, by storm?
It's great to see a young player like that and his energy that he plays with. I mean, I know a lot of my players here in the A's organization look up to a player
Mhm.
like that. Just the way he brings entertainment to the game, and obviously he's a great ball player too, and he gets the job done often. Yeah, it's going to be neat to see how he progresses and how like the longevity of his career too, and what he can hopefully bring to a championship team. And you just never know.
Mhm. Now, getting back to how I mentioned at the top about your hustle, anyone that wasn't, like a diehard fan back in 2016, just go look up Adam Rosales hitting a home run, and he would essentially sprint around the bases. I remember, because I had season tickets that year. I still do. My parents were like, "Why does he do that?" And I'm like, "I think that's the way that he was brought up." So, can you expand a little bit more on what made you want to do that?
Yeah, I wish I had like a better story
Uh-huh.
just to wow and shock the world why I do that. But I mean, ever since I've been about 14 years old, when I first hit a home run over the fence, the first time I hit a home run over the fence was actually left-handed because I'm a right-handed hitter.
Uh-huh.
But I hit lefty and I jogged around the bases, and it felt really awkward, and the ball just barely got out. So if it hit the top of the fence, I would have been standing on first base, which would
Uh,
have been super embarrassing. And I'm like, I'm not going to let that happen again. So every time I hit a home run, I'm like, I'm going to make sure I'm on second base. Heck, I might be on third base, no matter
mhm.
what. So I started sprinting around the bases when I was 14 years old. And then I made a promise to myself. I remember when I was young, I said, if I ever get to play in college, in pro ball, or in the major leagues, I'm going to stay true to myself and play like I played when I was 14 years old. And I always did. I always played the same way I did, with that energy, with that love and passion for the game.
Mhm. And I mentioned it earlier. I think that really gained a lot of respect, at least from, I mean, hopefully every team that you played for, because there are players that do have that reputation of, making, a lot of money, and then they don't always give 100%. Now, it's a long season, so I don't want to
Yeah.
and I know that it's a long season. I don't want to bash players for not hustling, but it's one of those things, maybe you can speak to it more, of not taking your position for granted, like how many people would want to be in that spot.
Right. I think now that I think about it, it held me accountable, right? Because I know, like you said, the longevity of a season, 162 games. I mean, obviously, I was a role player. I didn't play 162 games like Tatis or anybody else plays a whole season, but it defined who I was as a ball player. And if I didn't do that, if I didn't sprint onto the field and off the field, I would have hoped one of my teammates or a coach or a fan would have said, "What's up? How come you're not playing as hard as you usually do?" And
Mhm.
that's why I made sure I did, because you almost act like someone's always watching you. Someone, even like I used to when I was a young kid. I used to think, "Oh, there's a scout in the stands," but there was nobody there really. In the middle of Illinois somewhere, there's no scout there. But I would always act like somebody was watching me. And then when I got older in the major leagues, I always acted like someone like you was watching me, right? Somebody up there, a young kid, is watching me and hopefully holding me accountable for playing the game the right way.
Right. Yeah. Now moving to that 2016 season you played with the Padres, you had Andy Green as your manager. You had Wil Myers. I know you guys didn't make the postseason, but can you speak to what Will was like behind the scenes? Because I know I'm really interested in this. Behind the scenes, there's been stories about he didn't really want to take on that leadership role, being the face of the franchise and all that with the new contract, the big contract he had. What was he like behind the scenes? Was he a leader, still vocal, or is it more actions?
More about actions,
Mhm.
Will is just super chill, like one of my
I could
favorite
tell.
teammates. Like just super chill. Like he just, he wants to win. He wants to play the game hard, like the best, to his ability. But yeah, he's not going to be like a rah, like, let's go get him tonight, guys. He's just super chill. And like the way his at-bats that he has and the big hits that he has, that's how he speaks. He lets the bat, ball, and the gloves speak for him. The way I want to, the relationship that I had with him. But then, like other things, he helped me out because I like to do a lot of stuff in the community. When I was in San Diego, I would ask him to come help me with a clinic, and he would be there in a heartbeat, and he helped me, right? And he likes doing stuff like that, but like being in like the big spotlight, he probably let at the time it was like BJ Upton,
Yeah.
or James Shields, or Andrew Kashner was more the big time guys, and he's all right with with doing that. And it's a lot of respect to Wil just to stay true to himself in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Now moving to Andy Green, there's been Padre fans who maybe didn't like that move when he was hired and all that, and then hiring Jace Tingler, it felt like the same move over again. Now they have Bob Melvin, obviously a more experienced manager. But as for Andy, kind of like the Wil question, what was he like, behind the scenes? Was he that manager that went through, locker by locker, or was he more an office guy? Just what was he like?
Well, see, I have a completely different relationship with Andy Green because Andy Green and I go back to 2008. My first year in AAA, him and I were teammates and actually roommates on the road.
Okay.
Which is pretty special. And the thing I loved about Andy Green, and I still do, I actually call him up for advice a lot of times, to be honest with you, because he is smart, he's intellectual, he's detail oriented, and he's got a good demeanor. He had a lot of great. He pulled me out of the hole in 2016 when I was struggling. I was hitting like $180 in June, and I talked with him, and I turned it around just because he knew who I was. But yeah, he's more like detail oriented. Not many times he would do like what Bob Melvin did. He'd never like come up to me like during batting practice or walked around the field in batting practice. Like a little bit different approach. But obviously I have a different relationship with Andy Green and who he is as a human being, as a person, and the strength that I would always draw from him. So
I'm curious, this is a little bit, a different question.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes for fans, what was your kind of diet like in the big leagues? And this is kind of, or actually just answer that question first, and then I'll have a follow-up to that.
I had cheeseburgers and cheese fries. No,
tri-tip nachos or what?
You in the big leagues, you got all the different types of food you want at your fingertips. Whatever you want to. You could have a grilled cheese sandwich to a nice steak and lobster dinner if you wanted it, right? But I would always kind of be like in between. I always made sure I ate healthy, I get the right nutrients, because obviously I was a high energy player, so I had to make sure I had to get all the calories I can get in. But I would make sure they're like full calories. They weren't just empty calories like a cheeseburger all the time, But I would definitely indulge in a cheeseburger once in a while. But
did you have In-N-Out?
No, I'm not a big fan of In-N-Out.
No?
No, I'd rather do. I don't know. It just. I think it's a little hyped up. No,
all right.
I hope you're not sponsored by In-N-Out or anything.
No. I wish. No. How about Wil? I've seen him, have Chick-fil-A before games or whatever, pick up Chick-fil-A in spring training. What is that? Was that actually like real? Is that what he does?
Wil is just super simple. I'm telling you, like you talk about like a simple human being. That's Wil Myers.
Yeah. I mean,
it is just simple to the finest. I mean, I've seen it. We've had like steak and lobster sometimes, and he'll have like a ham and cheese sandwich, like that's the way. He just super simple. Like it's pretty.
So all the way from his diet to almost not, it doesn't even look like he cares about his hair. And then, and then
man, he is
no batting gloves.
I'll tell you what. But when it comes to competing and competition and seeing him work, like how disciplined he is, when it comes to his baseball game, it's pretty special, you know. And the way he talks about the game, it's he's smart, you know, he's getting smart. Like as he's there's so much room to grow for him. I feel like from when I first started playing with him, a lot of growth, and the way he talks about where he came from. So it's like it's like the sky's the limit for him because
Yeah.
the way he competes.
How cool would it? I mean, I think about this. There's stories about guys that have been, long tenured guys on teams. You think Brian Zimmerman with the Nationals a few years ago. How cool would that be for Wil, do you think, to reach the mountaintop with the Padres when he's the longest tenured guy there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing that I know he came from the Rays organization. I think it's the only
Yeah,
other
it was with
organization he was in.
Kansas City and then Tampa.
Oh,
And
that's
then,
right,
yeah.
that's right, that's right. Yeah, I mean, especially nowadays, to have a tenure with any ball club, any player to do that is special. And I'm sure I know he loves the city of San Diego, you know, and
Yeah.
and the way they've been super supportive now.
Yeah.
But
How about, in 2016 as well, you mentioned Shields and Cashner, but you did have Matt Kemp there as well, at the beginning.
yeah,
What was he kind of like behind the scenes? I think Tyson Ross, I've had him on. He was talking about how Kemp was more of, kind of like a father figure a little bit, helping guys out in the cage, stuff like that, family
yeah,
man. What can you tell us more about Kemp?
very similar. He would like to take on that role and that responsibility. I mean, at the same time, he kept it light. You know, on bus trips, he'd always be playing music and stuff. And you got to have that too. You know, that leadership as well, to not just be so rigid. Because obviously, 2016 was a tough year for us. It was
Right.
not easy for any of us. But he at the beginning, obviously, was there. He would try to keep it as light as possible. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
and keep us motivated to come to the field.
Yeah. In the middle of that year, he was obviously traded to the Braves. A lot was made of, the letter that he sent and saying that he was going to a real baseball city. I know that kind of irritated me, Padre fans,
Yeah,
but
it's tough to hear.
yeah. But what was that like? What was his kind of reaction to being traded? Was he disappointed but happy as well? Like, what was he? Do you remember what he was like?
I don't. I mean, once
Okay.
a team, because I was never close, you know,
Right.
with Matt Kemp, but um, and once you get traded, it's the next time you see him is when you're playing against each other, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like, hey, like a little bro hug, and that's about it. But and I kind of try to stay out of that stuff, yeah, it's pretty disappointing to see, you know, to say that about any team, but or any fans because they're there to support you.
Yeah. Yeah. How about AJ Preller? I've asked former guys, Clayton Richard, Tyson Ross, about what he's like behind the scenes, communication wise, all of that. Obviously, it's been well, chronicled how he like never sleeps almost. He's always trying to improve the team. Did you have a big relationship of sorts, with Preller? I know that you've mentioned that, during your career you've been sent up and down, and just those conversations I know can be tough. But in 2016 specifically, what was that like for you with AJ?
Like again, like that's a tough year to talk about.
Right.
2016 was pretty brutal. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that was a tough year. Actually, I knew AJ back in Texas as well. You know, when I was with the Rangers, and he always, you know, very professional. You know, always. I remember having a couple conversations when he came down and visited at Round Rock when I was in AAA, and I always had just a cordial relationship with him, but I never really knew him too well though. But a
Yeah.
little more quieter.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, last question here. This could also frustrate some diehard Padres fans if it's not the answer that they
Oh
want.
boy. Well,
What?
man.
Who is the favorite team that you played for during your career?
The San Diego
Oh
Padres.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that was probably my best comeback year. Personally, I don't like talk about myself and what I did, but that was a special year to kind of because we were struggling at the beginning of the year. We struggled basically all year round, but for me personally, I was really in dire straits. But then I turned it around after All-Star break, and the fans really embraced that. I feel like I had a lot of positive responses from them. So I love playing in San Diego. My wife and I always talk about it. That if the Padres signed me back, but they didn't sign me back. They did. We probably would be living in San Diego right now. Like we loved it so much that obviously it's a great city.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank you. This has been fun. Adam Rosales here, episode 107 of the Talking Friars podcast. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Adam, thanks so much for hopping on.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Ben.
No problem.